Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. We are going to be talking about every single fantasy book I have read this year up to this point, and more specifically, we are going to be talking about their magic systems and ranking them. I feel like today's video is going to be interesting. I have compiled this list of every single fantasy or fantasy leaning book I've read this year. So we have some epic fantasies, high fantasies, we have urban fantasies, YA fantasies, we have fantasy romances, and then romantasies. So we have a lot of variety to talk about today, but I'm gonna be curious how the magic systems stack up. Because I do think for certain few fantasy romances, for example, the magic systems can still be very robust. But then at the same time, we can also have some fantasy romances that don't really have a real existing magic system in them. So yeah, we're just gonna dive straight in. I feel like this is also going to be just a really fun way of going back through my fantasy reads this year and just to look back, reflect on what we've read so far. So we do have 35 books we're going to be talking about today. I've definitely read more fantasies than that, but I've only, for the series I've read, I've only picked one out of that series to represent that series, you know what I mean? So I think I've read probably closer to 50 to 60 fantasies this year in total, but because a lot of them belonged to series that I read multiple books in this year, the list looks quite a bit smaller. So I have prepared everything in this little tier rank thing, and I have my tiers ready for you. So let's quickly go over the tiers that I have prepared. The top tier is called Blessed by the Gods. These are just the magic systems that are absolutely wonderful, amazing, so thorough, fleshed out. They feel so real because you can't poke a hole in it. It's so detailed and also creative. That is very important as well. Tier 2 is Destined for Greatness. This is just the step under. It could be a very robust magic system, but maybe it's missing a little bit of creativity, or it could be the other way around. Maybe it's very creative, but there are certain holes or certain questions that, I feel like we are missing some sort of an explanation. Tier 3 is called Magical Vibes Only. So these are the books where, I don't know, the magic feels very much there. You very much believe it's there, but maybe the point of the book, the focus of the book wasn't the magic system itself and how everything worked. The fourth tier is It's Just Elemental. And I feel like this had to be a category because there are so many magic systems. They're just elemental magic. It's just you have fire or water or shadows, and that's it. And that does not require creativity. And then our fifth and last category is called Not Here for the Magic. So this is obviously for those books where the magic really truly is not the main focus. Let's just get straight into it. So the first book that I see on here is definitely one of the strongest magic systems I have probably ever read. And that is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, book 1 in the Stormlight Archive. I have just recently read this. You guys all went on the journey with me. First of all, we have these sprens in this world, and I always just keep referring to them as little Tinkerbells because that's what they remind me of. They fly around. They are kind of elemental. There are wind sprens, flame sprens, I think, but then there are also feeling motivated sprens. There are pain sprens, glory sprens. So there are emotional sprens too. And then from there, our characters in this world can sort of channel through the sprens, not really channel through them, but they bond with them, and then they can have magical abilities. Some of these spren bond types I think we've learned quite a bit more of in The Way of Kings, but I think there's still a lot more to dive into. And I also like how Brandon Sanderson in his worlds, he always there's never just one type of magical being, It's not just wizards. We always have different types of magical beings that come from different realms and all have different lore and how they developed as a species, let's say. So I feel like this has to be Blessed by the Gods. That was a very long way of saying the magic system in the Stormlight Archive is absolutely wonderful. I cannot poke a single hole in it. And I also do think, as I mentioned, we have just poked the surface of it in book 1. There are still, I do have a lot of questions about the magic, but I don't doubt that they will be answered by the end of the series. Okay, our second book is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Definitely a very different type of a magic compared to The Way of Kings. beings, a lot more abstract. The magic in this book is definitely the type of magic that does not require an explanation. Like, that is totally not the point of this book. The whole point is that magic is sort of a character itself. This is magical vibes only. Definitely a vibes book. There's not necessarily like a textbook out there to describe how the magic works. Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo next. This is here to sort of represent the entire Shadow and Bone trilogy. I read the first book last year, and then I read the second and third books this year, and this obviously fits into the bigger picture of the Grishaverse with Six of Crows and King of Scars. I think King of Scars, yes, actually on this list as well. So we'll kind of talk about these all together. When you look at this magic system to its core, it is elemental magic. We have Grisha, who are elemental beings. We have like the corporal Grisha, who can manipulate body parts. We have heartrenders, we have healers, we have like tailors who can alter appearance. And then we have, oh my gosh, what are they called? The ethereal? I've never said these words out loud before. I've only read them in text. But that class of Grisha are more just like very typical elemental magic, you could say. Like we have squallers who control like wind and storms and stuff. And then we have the fabricators who can manipulate like physical materials. I feel like this world is very lovely, but when you look at the magic to its core, it is elemental magic. And there are twists on it, like we have amplifiers, we have the Yurta, like the drug that can also enhance powers. But at the end of the day, this is just elemental, isn't it? It's a creative take on elemental, so I think this could be a mix between it's just elemental or destined for greatness, but I think if you look at it to its core, it's just elemental. Not necessarily a bad thing. I can read an elemental magic book and absolutely love it, but I think when I read these books, I am reading them for the characters versus reading them and like being like, wow, how does this magic system work? I'll put King of Scars over here as well. Our next one is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. Okay, hold on. I need to get my magical worlds straight here. The thing is, when you read so many fantasy books, sometimes the magic systems start like blurring in your head. Like they're only like super fresh while you're in them. But then like after you've read like 10 other magic systems, since you've read that book, the details start to fade. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing an absolute blank. I remember this world very clearly, and I remember our characters and their arc they went on, but like, what is the magic in this world? I don't think our characters had magic. No, they didn't. That's why I'm very confused and I can't think of it. There were sort of these like magical elements, like magical objects, like with the military, for example, they had these masks that they had to put on and they sort of like bonded to you as you went through this military program. There are also like sort of like magical beings, like magical creatures that we haven't explored that deep into. So the magic is not so robust in this one as of yet. Book one definitely explored just more of the structure of the society, established our main characters, and threw you into this dystopian fantasy setting. But we did not learn that much about the magic. There are there are these like creepy magical beings in this book, but not so much magic. So where do I put this one? I feel like the magic's going to be expanded in the next few books. I've only read book 1 out of 4 in this series, but for now I'm gonna put this in not here for the magic. I don't think, the magic system was not very present at all, but I was here for the story, the world, and the characters. But hopefully we do expand a little bit on the magic actually, now that I'm here thinking about it. Let's move on to Jade War by Fonda Lee. So this is book 2 of the Bone Saga. Book 1 was Jade City, of course, and book 3, Jade Legacy. So I read book 2 and 3 this year. We have green bones in this world who are humans, who can channel power through jade and then use it in a few different ways. Mostly you can kind of enhance your physical ability, like you can make your body light so you can jump very far, or you can like strengthen yourself, shield yourself, or you can do like these like kind of slashing things with it too, so you can slash with it, and you can even heal with it as well. Actually, there are different functions with the jade. We also have like a drug in this world that enhances your power with jade, or like allows people to use the jade. And then we have negative effects. here as well if you try to abuse the jade power. So we have a pretty solid magic system in this world. I don't think the magic was overly complex in this one. The focus of the book was definitely more on the politics and the characters. I'm gonna put this one in Destined for Greatness though. I think there was still something nice and refreshing about the fact that the humans were not just magical beings with like elemental magic, let's say. They had to use this resource, this physical material, to be able to channel magic from it. The next book on here is Foxglove by Adalyn Grace. This is also a book too. This is the Belladonna series. I read book 2 and 3 this year. We don't really have like a magic system in this book. It's another one of those. The magic in here feels very fairy tale. We kind of have curses-ish in this book. We have ghosts. We have fate-like characters, like death is a literal character in this book, and also fate and chaos and stuff like that. So we have these like magical immortal beings, but I would say the magic in this is very just there, the same way it's there in just a fairy tale. So we're gonna put this in magical vibes only. I think this fits very, very well there. Our next book is Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yambao. This is just like a Miyazaki movie. It is so dreamlike. It is so just like vivid. You can see the Miyazaki style animated images when you read this book. I think this kind of falls under the same category as The Night Circus and Foxglove, I think, where the magic is just there. There's never going to be an explanation for it. That's not the point. That would kind of break the vibes of this book if you had an explanation for everything that happened. So magical vibes only. Okay, Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. I actually just recently read this one. Magic, magic, magic. We have fairies in this book, lots of folklore, which I think is definitely the strong point in this book. If you love learning about fairy mythology and like just facts about fairies, this is definitely the world and series for you. Our main character herself is not magical. She is actually studying fairies. I wonder how much of the fairies and the fairylands in this book are Heather Fawcett's imagination and how much of it is based in true fairy mythology, because I don't know everything about fairy mythology, but the way that she writes the fairies and the facts about the fairies in this world make it seem like they are true facts. Like whenever I read anything about a fairy in this Emily Wilde series, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what fairies are. I'm gonna take that as like a scientific fact. I read her books literally as textbooks. It's definitely not gonna be not here for the magic, because the whole point of this series is to learn about fairies, so you're obviously there for the magic. Is it magical vibes only? No, but there's facts. There's facts about it. I don't think it's like quite destined for greatness level. This one doesn't really fit in any of these categories, does it? I'm gonna put this one in magical vibes only. I don't know where this one fits, but this is the best category for it, but it's kind of like magical vibes only plus. We're gonna talk about Blood over Brighthaven next by M.L. Wang. Okay, immediately, this has to go into Blessed by the Gods. Putting it beside The Way of Kings though, like, is it really as robust of a magic system compared to that? Maybe, honestly, but maybe not. And even if it's not quite at that level, I think the level of detail we got about the magic system in this book was so impressive for a 400-page standalone fantasy. I remember learning about the magic system in the first bit of this book and being like, wow, we are getting so many details about this for a standalone. Why do we need all this information? But by the end of the book, I do think you needed all that sort of technical information about the magic to truly like get the full impact of what goes on in the story. How do I explain it without spoiling the book? We have this city that is powered through this sort of magical alchemical system where energy is siphoned from various parts in the world and then converted into power. So converted into like electricity, to light things, to heat things, etc. But we really get into detail about how you like source this energy in the world, how you find these energy hotspots through this like typewriter looking device. You must read this book if you haven't yet, but yeah, I'm gonna call this one Blessed by the Gods. All right, next book is Silver Elite by Dani Francis. Now, I did not love this book. I think many of you know that, but in terms of the magic, oh, this is another one that I've just banished out of my head. What was the magic? Oh, oh, we had the mind magic in this one. We have non-magical people, and then we have the magical people who have like mind powers, so we can do like things like telepathy, mind control, we can read people's minds, and we can heal kind of randomly. I do like telepathy. I do like a mind connection. I think that's always really fun in fantasy, and especially something like Romantasy. Is it destined for greatness though? I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna put this one in It's Just Elemental, and it's not elemental magic in the basic form of like water, fire, air, but I feel like mind power is a type of elemental magic. I feel like there was definitely some creativity, to be honest, put into the magic and how it works, but I don't want to put it in Destined for Greatness because I didn't love this book. But you know what? The world and the magic, like the mind powers, were my favorite parts of this book. The parts I didn't love were the romance and plot holes and the silly decisions our characters were making. Fine, I'll put this in Destined for Greatness, but I didn't love this book. I remember I did find the world and the magic quite interesting. So I think if we're talking about just the magic system itself, it's gotta go in Destined for Greatness, but it's kind of making me cry inside a little bit seeing it up there beside Jade War. What? Okay, Fate of the Sun King is next by Nisha J. Tuli. This is the second book, I think, in the Trial of the Sun Queen series. I read books 2 and 3 this year and decided to not continue with the 4th because I just was not loving this story. I feel like it was very copy-paste, if I'm going to be quite honest, and the magic system itself was also very copy-paste, so this is just elemental. I feel like Nisha J. Tuli tried to throw in a few little different twists in there to the magic system, but to me, most of the twists that she threw in gave me a lot of world holes, like magic system holes that I was like, that doesn't make sense. And a lot of it seemed to be used as just like, I don't know, for a convenient plot device. Ooh, Rebecca Ross, wild reference. The magic in this one was quite cool. We followed gods as our main characters, so obviously those are quite magical beings. We also have dreams, like dreams and visions, and everything's also connected to like the stars and stuff. I really loved this one. I'm gonna say this one was destined for greatness. I think this is one of Rebecca Ross's stronger books in terms of how much magic is actually in it. Many of her books, I think, are stories set in slightly magical worlds, Divine Rivals, for example, but I think this is one of her most magical books yet, where, you know, we're literally following these very magical beings, and although we didn't get so much detail in how the magic of this world works, I think it was lovely, amazing. Enchantra is next by Kaylee Smith. Our main two sisters that we follow are, I forget what they're called. Oh my goodness, but Ophelia is very connected with death. What's her sister's name? Oh, I'm blanking. Her sister's literally the main character in Enchantra. And I loved Enchantra more than Phantasma, but I can't remember her name. But she's got a little something magical to her. We have also magical objects, and we obviously have demons, devils, and 2 enchanted houses so far with different games in them that are set by the devils. And we also have the underworld. I feel like this one is kind of a magical vibes only. Like, yes, magic plays a large role in the plot, but it's not like, yeah, it's not a robust magic system. The Dagger in the Flame by Catherine Doyle is next. This one actually kind of reminded me a little bit of Jade City in terms of the magic only, because we have a magical substance. This one is called shade. It's like a powder that is processed from a plant, and if you ingest the shade, you basically become a shadow daddy. And then there's kind of more that gets built onto the magic system from there. But at the end of the day, is this just elemental magic with like a slight hindrance? I don't know. It's elemental with a twist. I'm gonna put this in Destined for Greatness. I honestly think it was quite a good, robust magic system for a romantasy, because typically in romantasies we do get like just for the vibes, or it's just elemental types of magic, and there was a little bit more to it in this one, and I appreciated how we were actually exploring it through the plot. The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen is next. In this one, our magic is really just through the gods in this world. We have like the Greek gods, and they all have their own specialties, but our humans in this world are not magical at all, are they? I feel like the magic in this one is honestly for the vibes, you know? It's there to create your magical environment where your characters play, but it's not like we're learning how to use the magic. It's just already there. Ooh, The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Bridget Knightley. This is definitely more of a romance set in a fantasy world. But we did have some fun little things in here. So our main character is a healer. So we have healer magic. We have darker forms of sort of elemental magic as well. But what I actually liked about this world is we had these little, they were called Deofols. Maybe you pronounce it just like devils, I don't know. But it was spelled Deofels, I think, or maybe OLS, but Deofols. And there were these little like patronuses. To be honest, they're like a part of you, you're bonded with them, and they kind of act as your messengers. And you send them out to like the people you want to communicate with. And I thought those were really, really cute. I think I'm gonna call this Magical Vibes Only. A Fragile Enchantment by Alison Saft is next. This magic system, I remember when I was reading this book, I just kept thinking, the magic doesn't even have to be here. Like, I liked the idea of the magic. In this one we follow, she's kind of like a seamstress, but the fabrics that she weaves together have magic in them. Like, she can put magical emotions in them, kind of. So she could make a robe, for example, that gives you confidence. So every time you wear it, you feel confident. Magically crafted garments. But I remember, yeah, like reading it and being like, this could have just been a period history romance book. And the magic just seems to be there. I'm gonna put this one in not here for the magic. Like, you're there for the historical romance. The magic didn't really matter very much, but it was kind of unique the way it was done. Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli is next, the second book to Heartless Hunter or Crimson Moth. This one honestly disappointed me in terms of the magic, which was funny because in the first book, I was really kind of taken aback at the creativity with the magic system and how, so we have witches in this world, of course. Our story follows a witch and a witch hunter, and the witches use blood for their magic. But I found the first book to be really creative because our main character, like, witches are being hunted in this world, of course, and so the biggest telltale sign of a witch was these silver scars on their bodies, because they basically had to put cuts in themselves to get their blood to use magic. But every time they made these magical cuts, they would leave like a very distinct silver scar that didn't look like a normal scar. So our main character used her period blood. She would like collect period blood and then like store it and then use that for her magical spells. So that was really creative. But I think the second book in particular, I wanted more from the magic system. We had hints of like directions of where we could expand the magic, but then we just didn't go there. It was like, oh, look at this like little hint that I'm gonna like dangle in front of you as a carrot to like, you know, we could learn more about this and expand more on this, and then we just never got there. So it was really disappointing for me. So I'm gonna put this one in not here for the magic. I think if you're to read this duology, you know, you're reading it for the cat and mouse romance. You're not really reading it for the magic, so I'm gonna put it there. Next up is Four Ruined Realms. Funny, I actually have the third book beside me here because I'm currently reading it. These are books 2 and 3 of the Five Broken Blades trilogy. This one's an interesting one because in the first book, there's not much magic at all. We have a world where we have these magical relics that are left behind from like the Age of the Dragons, kind of. So we don't really have magic, you know, in abundance anywhere. We do have some magical creatures in this world, but yeah, our characters, our people are not magical whatsoever unless they have like one of these 5 magical Dragon Lord relics. But then as you move through the series, it gets more magical as you go on. I think honestly I'm gonna put this one in not here for the magic. We do get more of it as we go on, especially in this third book that I'm reading now, but I think when you read this book, you're reading it for like the heist and the liars and the drama of it all. I think I have to move Silver Lee. I keep staring at it up there and it's making me just feel uncomfy. I think I'm gonna move it down to not here for the magic because now that I've put things like Rebel Witch and Four Ruined Realms in this category, I think it makes more sense to put Silver Lee in here because it falls sort of under the same category where there, you know, is sort of this cool setup of it. But then again, like reading through the story of Silver Elite, you were not reading it for the magic. You were reading it for the romance. Where a romantasy like The Dagger and the Flame, actually, while there was romance in it, we took time to like investigate into like the magic and how it works. So that's the distinction between those two. But okay, I'm happy now. The Wild Huntress by Emily Lloyd-Jones is next. This is a lovely fairy standalone fantasy, which I think you need to read this fall. We have a wild hunt. So we have a contest here that is hosted by fairies and mortals, and in this contest you get bonded by magic, so you kind of get really immersed and like intertwined into this cursed contest kind of, which is fun. Our 3 characters are kind of a little bit magical in their own ways. Some are more magical than others. We're following fairies, so we do get similar like folklore vibes as in what was in the Emily Wilde books, but I think we had more like practical use of it in this one, where in Emily Wilde we were kind of learning facts for textbooks, like to put in Emily's encyclopedia, where in The Wild Huntress the magic seemed ever more present somehow, if that makes sense. So I'm honestly gonna put this one in Destined for Greatness. I think this had a lovely amount of magic for, again, like a standalone. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson is next. Another Brandon Sanderson. I don't think I can say too much about this one without spoiling things, but we do have a Nightmare Painter that is one of our main characters, obviously, and he paints things basically to get rid of these demons. And then our other character, Yumi, stacks stones to draw in spirits. I think this has to be Destined for Greatness. Really enjoyed the magic in that one. Rose and Chains by Julie Soto's next. Another one of our Hermione fanfictions. I think this is just elemental. I don't think there was that much like that was like, whoa, that's cool in the magic in this world. It was nice, it was there, but again, like I don't think it was very much like built upon. Maybe we'll build on it more in the future books, but yeah, I think for this first book, the magic was just kind of there. Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan is next. Another sort of like gods, mythological type of a story. I think this one is magical vibes only. Similar reasoning as to why I put something like Foxglove in here. I think the atmosphere was wonderful. My favorite magical element in this book was that our characters could stand on these clouds and then like whisk them around, and that was the primary source of travel in this world, was just standing on these little clouds. I don't know, just picturing it made me really happy. But yeah, in terms of things being explained, that's not what you're here for. You're here for the mythology and the fairy tale like story. We do have Onyx Storm next though. Very different vibe by Rebecca Yarros. I honestly love this world. I love the magic. I love the fact that our riders bond with dragons, and then each rider gets a unique power depending on what they need, and also depending on the combination of strengths and weaknesses between the rider and the dragon, and how it's like so unique to the dragon rider bond. You could look at this magic system and say it's just elemental, because most of the, I guess like the main characters especially, like I don't know, they have shadow magic. We have characters with like ice magic or metal magic. So there's a lot of elemental magic in there, but there's so much that is built on top of that I think this has transcended the it's just elemental category. I'm gonna put this in Blessed by the Gods. I have been surprised over and over again at how much Rebecca Yarros is expanding on all of the fantasy elements in this series, because it is classified as a romantasy series and there is a big romance plot in these books, obviously, but I always get so impressed at how much magic and fantasy politics and everything that is in these books. So I'm gonna put it up there. We have House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. We're not here for the magic in this book. No, we're here for the vibes. We're here for the vibes, I would say. But are we? No, we're not here for the magic. We're gonna put it down here. We are here in this House in the Cerulean Sea, cozy little fantasy environment for the characters, for the kids, for all the messaging in this book. We're not here to build upon that magic. We're here to take care of the kids and for the warm hugs. Immortal Dark by Tygas Gurma is next. This one is a vampire book, and we did build upon some vampire lore in this one, which was interesting. We also have this sort of dark academia setup where we have houses and families that are bonded to those houses. Is this Destined for Greatness though? You know what? I don't think the point of this book was the magic. I think it built upon the vibe. I think the magic in this world really set up that like dark academia vibe where you're like tied down by the rules of the school and the contracts and everything. So I think this is magical vibes only. But The Night and the Moth, on the other hand, is this Destined for Greatness or Blessed by the Gods? because the magic in this was so creative. I'm gonna put it in Destined for Greatness. I think if we had One Dark Window in this tier list, that would be Blessed by the Gods, but I read that one years and years and years ago, of course, so it's not in this list. The Night and the Moth, though, I think was so creative. I loved how we had our diviners, and I loved how they dreamed and had these visions and could predict the future that way. And then I liked our little magical objects and the lore and the backstory of everything. So I really, really loved the creativity, but I don't think it was as like in detail robust as One Dark Window, for example. So I think this was Destined for Greatness. Really good, really solid. And I wonder, as we move on to the second book, how we will expand on that. So this could move into Blessed by the Gods, depending on how much more into it we get in the second book. But in terms of the first book itself, Destined for Greatness. Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim is next. This one, I don't think we need to discuss this one too much. This is the prequel to the Six Crimson Cranes duology. This is magical vibes only. Very similar to some of the other books in this category. It was just very fairy tale. Breath of the Dragon by Fonda Lee and Shannon Lee is an interesting one. The magic in this one, we had people with dragon scales, and those were the magical people, but I think in terms of this story, this was just like a fun like martial arts story. I don't think you're reading this for the magic. The magic is just kind of a bonus on this world. So while the magic in this one, I think this one could be in between magical vibes or Not Here for the Magic, but we're gonna stick it in Not Here for the Magic. Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stephen is next. Our lovely Reincarnation Curse. Where do I put this one? This one kind of threw me off at the end when we actually learned more about the curse and how the magic there was formed, but not in a good way, in my opinion. I'm gonna put this one in Not Here for the Magic. I don't think you read this one to learn about magic. It's one of those like curse books. Like, yes, you know there's magic present at all points in the story, but you're more there for like the emotional turmoil of these two characters meeting each other, falling in love with each other, and killing each other in every single lifetime. And you're more there for the mystery and the emotional like torment. Down to our last four, we have What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. This is another magical artifacts book where we have these old relics from a more magical time. But I think this one has to go into Not Here for the Magic. It's sort of similar to Four Ruined Realms, where you can be affected by these old magical relics, but you're not there for the magic system in this book. You're there for the history, the mythology, the mummy vibes. The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon is next. I think this one has to be Blessed by the Gods. We have some really cool magic in this one, and this one kind of borders on that sci-fi fantasy line. This is just such a robust magic system and world. We have our clairvoyance of so many different types, but then we also have these other magical beings that I can't talk very much about without spoiling like the entire plot of the first book. You're just gonna have to trust me on that one. There's a lot. It's one of those series that builds and builds and builds as you read on more and more and more. This one's a beautiful magic system that I cannot poke any holes in. Glow of the Everflame is here to represent the spark of the Everflame series, but this one is a fun take on elemental magic. Like, you could say this is just elemental, but there's like a territory restriction on it. We also have some other sort of godly stuff happening in this one, don't we? I think at the end of the day, though, this is an elemental magic story. Oh, we are down to our last book, you guys. We have The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This is just elemental. This is a pure elemental magic book, at least for now. Like, at least from what I've seen, this is just one of those YA fantasies that is just nostalgic. Like, the world and the magic are both not overly creative, not overly complex. They feel very much the same as to every other YA fantasy book you've read, but in a good way that just feels comfortable. Like, you don't have to spend so much brain power on figuring out how things work. You just already know, and then you can just use your, I don't know, emotional side of your brain capacity to just be into the story. It's just elemental. But that being said, there we have it. Those are all 35 fantasy books tier ranked by magic system. I thought this was a fun little exercise, a fun little activity to do. Definitely was a good time looking back through the fantasies I've read this past year. It's obviously like my favorite genre to read, so it's just fun thinking back. But anyways, I am going to leave you guys here for now. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what your absolute favorite magic system is, like what book it came from. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!